Have you ever heard of Hillsong Church?
Yes, I do know Hillsong Church.
Hillsong is an evangelical, musical, big church.
I've heard of it, I think mainly through Justin Bieber.
It was the first church that I actually went to in New York City. I went every single Sunday.
I know it's a very large international community that's reaching the far corners of the world to kind of spread the gospel.
Come on, lift up some praise to that!
Hillsong has grown into one of the most influential megachurches in the world.
They're huge now. They're huge, especially in America.
I'm a really big fan of the music.
They've had over 3 billion views on YouTube. They are very much of themselves, their own brand. They're global, they're great at Instagram.
I mean, Carl Lentz is the superstar.
Sheep desperately need a shepherd.
Hillsong is the celebrity church, right?
Celebrity attendees from Justin Bieber to Vanessa Hudgens to Chris Pratt.
The music is unbelievable. You've got famous people attending the church.
It's like a rock show.
Leading the way is the church's founder and senior pastor, Brian Houston.
Hillsong was able to somehow influence his way into some of the most powerful circles ever.
Well, what an honor to be standing in the White House, in the cabinet room.
Were you surprised when it all kind of came crashing down?
It was a huge fall from grace.
Carl Lentz is working on damage control.
Nothing about Hillsong surprises me.
Hillsong appeared to be succeeding, building a global brand before a dramatic unraveling.
I swear by Almighty God.
This is gonna get ugly for all of us.
Can you describe a service for me? Walk me through what it would be like, you know, when you first show up outside of Hillsong.
You could arrive an hour before service and there would be a line starting to form around the block.
We would always be greeting people, probably carrying trays with snacks and things.
There was already that excitement and buzz.
So doors would be open. You would come in, big posters saying, "Welcome home, you belong, come as you are."
The first thing you see is a welcome team.
They're usually the nicest people.
You know, Richard, you're amazing. We're so happy to have you here. We can see great things for your future. You know, we really love you. They really make you feel welcome, make you feel wanted, and make you feel good.
Everyone's wearing what they want. There was diversity on stage and among the people in the pews. Hillsong is a safe space for them. I could be whoever I wanted. People didn't care. This was gonna be a place where I could call my home. I need a minute. That it hurts to look back because I was so into it. I was so embedded in it. I wanted to believe it.
They make you feel so good, and before you know it, you know you're right in it and you're committed. But unfortunately, there's something more sinister under the surface. I found when I left, I genuinely believed I was the problem. Sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional. The beliefs that they put in you go deep. They really get in your head.
Now that I look back, I'm like, damn, that they're trying to manipulate you into receiving and accepting the abuse that they're causing. It was traumatic, and it could have taken my life if I stayed a minute longer.
My name's Tanya Levine, and I spent my teenage years in the church called Hills Christian Life Centre, which is the church that became Hillsong. Frank Houston, who had previously been the superintendent of the Assemblies of God in New Zealand, moved here in the late 70s, and a couple of years later, his son Brian and his wife Bobby came here too. Frank had started Sydney Christian Life Centre in the centre of Sydney. That he was quite the hellfire and brimstone preacher.
The world is in for a tremendous shock. Jesus is going to come suddenly.
So it was all very old school in the beginning. Eventually they branched out and Frank started another one in the Hills area, and he put his son in charge of it. It was a really warm community, family environment. There were like 300 people when we started there, and it was in an old warehouse. And somewhere in those late 80s, things really changed.
So let us dance and praise the Lord. Whoa! Let us dance and praise the Lord.
Brian really wanted to start expanding, but we're just a small little suburban church. We don't know how to really reach people. So Brian went on a trip to the States and made friends with a guy called Casey Treat.
You can prosper in your soul. You can rise above those negatives.
Promise to those of us who know beyond a doubt that we are his children.
I'm an Australian-born journalist. I've written a book on the neo-charismatic Pentecostal movement, and I've written a lot about Hillsong and its various iterations around the world. The Pentecostal movement started in Kansas and California at the start of the 20th century. It was people who wanted to speak in tongues, as was foretold in the Bible. And then in the 60s, it was born again, if you will, by a musician, one of the founding members of what became the Righteous Brothers. It was disaffected New Agers who'd been at the Summer of Love in Haight-Ashbury. Some people call them, hippie Jesus. It was about bringing the music at the time and merging it with religion and saying, it's okay to do this, which was really quite radical at the time.
Jim and Tammy aired at 1086-13.
The PTL Television Network presents Jim and Tammy. Praise the Lord. See the things that he has done.
The third wave, which really got going in the 70s and certainly the 80s, was much more global and it was much more corporate. It was about taking these movements and making them very branded and understanding that church can be done in a new way, a modern way, something that people like and enjoy. So Brian realized this is how you do it. So it was all about the music and taking the global aspect that the world was going in and putting that into church and making people feel a part of something bigger and understanding it was about giving consumers what they want. The customer is always right.
While traveling the United States, Brian Houston learned how to get money out of people so that they could build the kingdom.
So one of the ideas of the Pentecostal movement is that there's a special messenger, and this messenger has been anointed by God to bring the message, and some of that message then is prosperity.
As surely as I'm speaking by the Spirit of God, that is a word for a person right now. That is God penetrating your heart. It's burning on the inside of you, and you need to make a vow of faith of $1,000. Oh, Bob, couldn't you say 25? No!
Prosperity gospel is when you accept Jesus, you should be expecting blessing in terms of financial prosperity.
You'll be blessed, and you'll invite others over after you pledge, and they will be blessed too.
You want it, you're going to get it. Health, wealth, success.
But I'm here to tell you tonight, you a chance to raise your income. Praise God.
Brian was going, wow, you can really do that? I'm going to have some of that for me. And he came back with, stars in his eyes. That was where the real change happened.
And the church that I see is a church of influence. It's a church so large in size that the city and nation cannot ignore it.
Brian Houston released this mission statement, and it was titled, "The Church That I See." He talked about wanting a church that filled stadiums and influenced cities and was spread around the globe.
It's a church growing so quickly that buildings struggle to contain the increase. The church that I see is a church so committed to the raising, the training and empowering of a leadership generation that all its ministries are consumed with this goal.
Brian Houston was very clever at packaging what his father had done in terms of planting churches and being a part of the Pentecostal movement, but really modernizing them. And understanding that it's just about, getting more people in the door. It really got going in the early 90s with Hillsong worship. That was when they really hit on the music angle and how popular that would be and started spreading it around Sydney and Australia.
Our fastest selling praise and worship album is God is in the House, another live recording from Hillsong's Australia.
Growing up in Sydney where Hillsong started, I did have a friend who invited me to a Hillsong evening, which was a stadium spectacular. My parents were a bit skeptical about letting me go, but this is part of the appeal of Hillsong is that, there are worse things your 15-year-old daughter can be doing on a Saturday night. So they let me go and I experienced it. I didn't really think a lot at the time, but I saw Hillsong come to prominence and realized that I'd experienced it without really knowing. They had a former child star, Darlene Sheck,
that with our God, all things are possible,
who helped bring about Hillsong worship music. She was very much tuned into the musical culture of the time and made good music, and Hillsong started producing that. Hillsong was originally the name of the band, and then the band and the music became so big that the church changed its name to Hillsong.
Love you so much, Jesus.
Hillsong started producing it well and exporting it overseas, and the brand really took off from there.
I grew up going to a very big megachurch. I reported a story for The Fader in 2018 on Hillsong. I had no idea how much of an impact they had on American evangelicalism or even my own childhood. But I started looking into it, and suddenly all of these songs that I had heard my whole life, I realized were written by Hillsong in the first place. Their songs are better than everyone else's, and they can kind of infiltrate into other churches by having good music. What Hillsong did was kind of marry the music that they wanted to sing in church, the themes, with contemporary music. So early Hillsong music, the 2000s, sounds like 2000s pop. Today's Hillsong music sounds like Coldplay. The goal of Hillsong is to stay current. It's making music that you know people will like. And instead of refurbishing your grandma's old hymns, it's something new and shiny. These kind of swells of emotion and huge, momentous chord progressions. It's made to make you feel something. They want you to feel the presence of God within you. But it's easy to mistake emotional manipulation for a movement of God, right? Are you crying because the Lord is staging some kind of intervention in your life, or are you crying because the chord structure is built to make you cry? So if you go to Hillsong any week, there are songs that even if you went every week, you would have never heard because they're new. They're being tested live on the audience every Sunday, which is kind of funny, right? You say like, you're going to worship, you're going to like experience your faith, your once a week practice, and unbeknownst to you, the people on stage who are leading you in this like emotional worship are testing their new products on you, right? It's kind of a weird dynamic.
Music's a really huge department because it's so critical to their hypnosis. The music is completely weaponized for whatever the church's needs are, as well as financial, which is the aim of the game, is to get the money out of the people.
Hillsong has done a great job of monetizing the music. It's been a tremendous revenue source for the ministry.
Young people are drawn to Hillsong's music. The church has its own record label that sold 16 million albums worldwide and earns $100 million a year.
It's a mammoth amount of money.
You know, it's just about growth. It's about expansion. They very much want to spread their tentacles as far as they can. Brian always said, without a vision, the people perish. He had global expansion intentions up front, explicit intentions to take over the world with his church.
Hillsong is an incredibly successful organization. You know, they have a massive influence around the world. And I can elaborate on that if you want. I kind of categorize them into six C's. One, they're a church.
Proverbs 4 verse 25 says, let your eyes look straight ahead.
Then they have the concerts. Then CDs. I would say music, but I needed to keep my alliterations. They have a leadership college. Cinema, which would be the movie and other media. Then they have their conferences. From an organizational and marketing and communication standpoint, brilliant. You know, listen to my music on a Sunday, come to our church, you like the church, come to our conference, and they definitely feed on each other.
This is a conference, so conference is a conference, but I've always felt like it's a movement.
So I went to the Hillsong conference in Sydney, Australia, and you know, that ticket was $500, and then I bought a bunch of stuff. You know, so I probably spent $1,000 plus tithing.
Our people have just been so willing to just keep on giving.
You can go and see Hillsong United in a stadium tour. It's the same arena that Taylor Swift plays when she comes to town, right? It's a huge experience and it's a high production value, and ticket sales are really high and you can make a lot of money there.
It's a money-making machine. It has one purpose: to get hold of as much of your money as they can.
Hillsong consistently says we're not a business, we're a church, but they behave exactly like a big Fortune 500 company.
In terms of the business model, it's treating people as consumers.
It's like a sales funnel where you want to get the most amount of people in the doors at the top of the funnel, because inevitably that'll lead to more conversions or more donations, however you measure success within your church.
Hillsong's much more about selling you things. They sell you CDs, obviously, first and foremost. They sell you self-help courses. They sell you books. They sell you inspiration to live in this world. And they're obviously very good at it. Brian realized that it's all about the product that you're creating, and it's all about the brand. He's a spiritual entrepreneur. He's effectively the CEO of a spiritual company.
The rub is it okay for us to use God as a way to profit. I don't have the answer, but I'm not supposed to make consumers. We're supposed to make disciples.
Brian Houston had his sights on expanding globally. By the end of the 2000s, they really wanted to get into the US market. So by 2010, they made that move.
We are a visionary church, and I love it, and many people here, you love it, but not everybody loves it. Your dream is going to threaten some people. And I really genuinely believe the Holy Spirit put it in my heart that the day would come when he would give me and give us, Hillsong Church, influence in America. And I just couldn't see how that could happen. I felt like a speck. This is a country of over 300 million people. But I've learned to trust God.
One wildly popular megachurch from Australia is making its mark here in the United States.
In New York, you had, the backdrop of the city, and you were also able to rent big venues and have the services there. Hillsong's main venue in New York City is a concert venue in Manhattan, Irving Plaza.
My name is Janice Legata. I was a member of Hillsong NYC for 7 years, I think. And this is where we first had church. So Saturday night, there'd be a concert. So on Sunday morning, it was just basically coming in early, turning this bar, this nightclub, into a church. There would be a long line going that way, at least to the end of the block, and usually wrapping around. And so having that kind of line there, and at a venue like this, it looks like it's something cool. It's New York, and everybody wants to be part of whatever's going on. So a lot of people, just the curiosity, yeah, it definitely worked.
It's very interesting when people talk about, planting a church in the middle of New York City. Literally, a very small Christian population. So why? Well, there may not be many Christians, but there's certainly plenty of sinners.
They find people who are looking for answers, having personal struggles, and sought those people out and recruited them.
So what happens is, to the non-Christian, or the fringe Christian, if you will, the non-believer who gets drugged to church by his or her friend to listen to this music and then this wonderful motivational speech, they're like, oh, this is Christianity, this is easy. This is cool church, where we all gather together as a community. It's where you don't have to deal with your sin because no one really asks about it. That sounds good to young people.
Hillsong have good worship music. I think it's really approachable. It's not very in your face, hymns and songs. It's very easy to get into.
I used to go to Hillsong. I went to Hillsong for about a year, and it was I wasn't that connected spiritually, but I sort of went into it okay, it's a really dope TED Talk, and I would cry every single time, but it was a really life-changing experience.
I actually used to go to some of their events when I was younger and going through my life crisis. It's very emotional, I feel for a lot of people, and that really even if you're just kind of there and unsure of things, which I was young, I was looking for, community and stuff like that, it can be really addicting in the best sense of the word.
Hillsong, at the time that they were starting the New York plant, I knew Hillsong itself was anti-homosexual, the no sex before marriage, all those things. I knew that they were that still, but it was always about purpose. It was always about trying to fulfill your dreams and getting people of my age group, which was early 20s, early mid 20s, to serve one another, serve your community. That right there was exactly what I needed for social interaction, was to be at a church, a mega church that's full of people, and getting connected that way.
Another thing that Hillsong has done really well is what I call nightclub rules. They're very good at understanding that to get young men into a church, it's very handy to have a lot of young women. They're very good in saying, hey, this is church done our way. This is different to what your grandmother's church is. You know, if you don't like it, that's cool, but just come along and enjoy yourself. And that really worked out.
It goes back to demographics. It goes back to marketing. It goes back to a well thought out business plan.
The people that the system benefits really, really get rewarded. You know, if you're a charismatic and outgoing person who's, you know, who can really bring the crowds in and get the money out of people, you're going to be very successful in Hillsong. And that's what happened in the case with Carl Lentz.
We're pretty confident you've never met a pastor like Carl Lentz.
GMA cover story, Carl Lentz.
Carl Lentz. Carl Lentz.
Can I get an amen?
Amen. Please welcome Pastor Carl Lentz.
My name is Carl Lentz. I pastor Hillsong, New York City.
I'm from Virginia. Not everybody affiliated with us, Hillsong is Australian.
Carl Lentz came out from America and trained at Hillsong College when he was younger.
Brian Houston had his sights on global expansion for 30 years now. And I think when he saw Carl Lentz, he realized he'd hit the jackpot.
Carl does have this X factor.
I have gum because I break rules. Not supposed to have gum, but I do it anyway.
He's in shape. He's attractive.
I was showing my friend a photo of Carl when I first started reporting on Hillsong, and she thought he was from the Jersey Shore. I mean, this is clearly a man who cares a lot about his body and his presentation and his appearance.
He dresses well.
He was always about the tattoos, the trendy stubble, jeans, leather jackets, that sort of thing. And it shows a different way of doing things, and it makes you feel that your belief system is valid in the modern world.
But this is the way you dress normally?
No, I normally have a collar.
You
and
do?
a robe. No, I'm kidding.
He smiled a lot. It was very, smooth.
He was the face, very good-looking guy. He was a very, very charming guy. He had a beautiful wife with beautiful children. He was just like, wow, this guy is, he's really something.
I'm not the same. I don't think the same. I don't talk the same. And I don't know if greatness is in my future, but I do know that I feel God's hand on my life, and I'm trying to find ways to tell people about it.
Carl is a very, very charismatic person on stage.
I mean, did y'all watch the royal wedding a couple months back? Anybody? I didn't either, because we, in America, we have one king. His name is Jesus. Carl, get over it.
Sometimes it's like, you're acting a fool a little bit, but it's totally fine. Like, it makes you feel more comfortable when someone's being goofy on stage, or cool, or suave, or whatever it is. He had a way of, connecting and making people in the audience feel at ease.
He brought a very fresh, charismatic, fiery energy.
Carl clearly changed the way that many of us saw how church could be done.
And some New Yorkers can't seem to get enough of their unlikely pastor.
Carl Lentz, he's drawing people in to Hillsong, New York. You should see that line on a Sunday morning.
So Hillsong East Coast YouTube, subscribe if you haven't yet.
But let's face it, they're not coming there for sound doctrine. They're not coming there to be fed the word. They're coming there to see the cool Carl Lentz.
Isn't it amazing what God has done? And I have a feeling that the best is yet to come.
I don't like to say celebrity pastors, but I do feel like there is that kind of celebrity pastor environment that we're living in right now. But I found out about Carl and knew that I wanted to attend his church when I came to go to NYU.
That guy was iconic. Those the glasses. Like he just was like he was really confident. But you can tell that it was coming from like a super authentic place. Like he was someone that was genuine. And he'd been through shit, but he had confidence. And he could get you engaged. I mean, personally, yeah, it was cool when other pastors came, but when it was Carl, I was like, I'm glad I came to the 7 p.m. You know?
A few years ago, I started an Instagram account showing megachurch pastors wearing expensive sneakers. I noticed that there were a whole slew of pastors and worship leaders that were wearing the most expensive streetwear out there. Supreme, Off-White Jordan collabs, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, all these incredibly expensive brands. And I called it Preachers and Sneakers. It was not meant to do anything other than just to make your friends laugh for a second and move on. And then in 4 weeks, I had 100,000 followers. So I'm just in the middle of this, watching this account grow, not knowing what I stepped into, but knowing that there was something important happening because people were freaking out. I think that everybody just had this thought in their mind, like, hey, it seems like these guys are getting rich off of the gospel, or it seems like these guys are just building their own brand while also asking for donations, or like it seems like these guys are making serious cheddar off of a role that is funded by sacrificial donations of people that are trying to further the kingdom. And so the sneakers were just the way into that. My first post about Carl Lentz was a picture from his Instagram where he's wearing some Nike Air Fear of God sneakers. And the shoes at the time were reselling for like $800. And then I posted another picture of him wearing a Supreme Louis Vuitton hoodie.
And what are you doing this conference? Hanging out?
Yeah, we've been hanging.
Wearing Supreme sweaters.
Just wearing sweaters.
Just living the dream. We've been living the dream, honestly, right?
We have been.
That hoodie at the time, I think, was on the resale market for like $10,000 or $15,000. The prices were insane. I'm a big fan of my church, and even though it's got like 10,000 members, they're transparent about their money, and I think that should be the minimum expectation of a church that's bringing in $100 million a year. I'm pointing out the standard and saying, collectively, are we all okay with this? As Christians specifically, are we, maybe this is the best way to do church. Like maybe this is the best way to treat our pastors by showering them with gifts and private jets and courtside seats and all that kind of stuff. But have you ever questioned if it actually is the best way? And people would get mad at me for that. So I'm sure that all the money that you're profiting from assassinating pastors and Christian leaders is all being tithed to God, huh, Ben? I'm sure that God isn't watching or keeping record of your angelic Lucifer-like actions and healing words. There was one guy, he wanted to fight me over the fact that I posted about Brian Houston wearing a pair of $500 Gucci sneaks on his own TV show. I think it was a good picture about the loyalty that some of the people that go to Hillsong displayed to the team or to the people that were at the top. Carl reached out to me through a mutual friend. He basically indicated like, hey, Carl will be open to talking with you. I ran this account anonymously for 2 years. Most people didn't know who I was. Every news agency is calling me trying to figure out who I am. The New York Times is saying like, hey, you know, we're the newspaper of record. This would be a good time for you to reveal your identity. And I passed. The Today Show asked me to come on and I passed. But I'll never forget this. When Carl and I got on the phone, the first thing that he said to me was like, so who am I talking with, man? I mean, let's level with each other. I just said, my name's Ben. And so he got my name. I somehow trusted him from the first moment we spoke. And I guess that's just like a testament to how good he is with people. So we had a really good conversation on the phone. He texted me a few times. He kind of like went back and forth between like, hey, I disagree with what you're doing. Basically, like, it's an unfair spotlight to put on people. And I thought that was fair. But at the same time, he leveled with me. He was like, hey, I get it. I get the question. I get, why people are upset. I've been asked this before. Like, I've been asked worse things, that kind of thing. And now it's like anything, when you humanize somebody, it makes it a little harder to treat them the same way as you were before online. As a guy that feels things, like that made me more conflicted about it.
In the early days, being a stage manager, I was one of the people he just saw all the time. So we just kind of clicked. And I don't know, just something about when he shook my hand, the way he looks at you, I was like, oh, okay, like I'd follow this guy anywhere. Like he just seems so genuine. There are just some people who just have that thing where they can just connect with people really well, and he's got that. I think people can get into preaching for the right reasons and with the best of intentions, but getting the fame and getting the attention as a species, like we are not good with power.
You can keep your new normal. I'm going after a supernatural revival. I'm not going to stop my own growth until I get there.
Like power corrupts.
I will not slow down.
Carl Lentz was a very young man when he started at Bible college. I believe he was 21 years old. He was very quickly brought into this system because Brian Houston can profile people so well and can tell, who's going to play the game and who's going to resist it.
Carl was able to break into these spheres that would have never welcomed Brian Houston or any other 90s preacher.
Brian Houston saw that charisma and just chose that path for him.
Forget about going after the lost. We got trouble loving the found.
Brian took a liking to him straight away. He could see his potential. Brian was like salivating over him in the early interviews. Well, he'd hit the jackpot for someone with so much charisma and so much appeal who was willing to work so hard and put in the hours and, really sacrifice his life and become somebody else for Hillsong.
Early on, I knew there was this guy who was, a charismatic leader of this church. I don't think I would have been able to put a name to him until his very oddly close relationship with Justin Bieber.
I just want to love people more. I just want to love Carl more. You're doing a good job with that.
So,
man.
So for a few years, Justin Bieber was very visibly in the news for having some kind of TMZ type moments.
All right, the first case this afternoon is Justin Bieber.
What'd you say? You had to beat the fuck out of you.
So his career was starting to be defined by those antics, and Carl tried to get him to work on himself, work on his faith, that kind of thing.
My faith grows every day.
Carl ended up famously baptizing him in Tyson Chandler, who's an NBA player, his bathtub.
It was awesome. It's a cool memory for all of us.
If you're hanging out with Bieber, all mainstream media is going to pay attention. Like, who is this ripped dude that Bieber's hanging out with on the beach?
He mainstreamed the church even more. It wasn't just this Australian startup that's popular for its music anymore. It was Justin Bieber's church. They got write-ups in GQ magazine, in music magazines, in all sorts of popular press. I mean, getting that crossover is huge. That would have, increased their numbers, increased their social media follows, all the things that ultimately they want to transform society into their vision.
celebrities love Hillsong. Selena Gomez used to be a congregant.
You went to Hillsong.
Yes.
Our friend Carl Lentz, who we love.
We love
I was just
him.
texting him.
Yes. Kevin Durant.
The Jackman family, Bono, Lenny Kravitz. These are the people that I've run into at Irving.
Kendall Jenner was pretty involved.
Carl's church was that famous group, all the famous people. That was really his church.
There's just this obvious culture at Hillsong of celebrity worship.
Again, that's the marketing ploy. When that word gets around, it's kind of like a restaurant. Oh, somebody famous came in last night. Then you'll see, now with social media especially, you'll see more people in that restaurant the next night than you've ever seen before because a celebrity was there the night before. Hillsong's the same way. Oh, I might see Justin Bieber?
I did know that Justin Bieber goes to a Hillsong church. It's exciting. It's like nice to see celebrities that go to a church that I also attend.
Hillsong was catering to the celebrities very consciously, and I think the celebrities were receptive.
Hillsong comes along and offers this place where you can be religious but not stuffy. There's this idea of like, oh, you've got a sex tape, cool. You love Jesus, even better. Like, there's this malleable thing about Hillsong. On the other side, you've got Hillsong, which is looking for a way to be in the media. Celebrity does that reliably every time, right?
It's been called the Church the Stars for its celebrity following.
The goal of our church is from the nameless to the famous. Our church should have celebrities, we believe, because we're trying to reach everybody. That's one of our goals.
Was it a lucky coincidence that Bieber got involved with Hillsong? I'm gonna have to be a bit of a cynic. Given that I feel very sure that it was part of the Hillsong strategy to attract celebrities and to make them sort of front and center of their branding.
I mean, I think it benefited both of them, didn't it? Bieber was like, leaving monkeys behind in other countries and pissing in mop buckets and stuff. And, the bad boy thing for Justin Bieber was wearing thin. He needed to look like he'd had this great time of faith and was turning over a new leaf.
So they really worked out well for each other at exactly the right moment. Is it possible that they just ran into each other on the same day? Yes. I'm not. I think it's far more likely that Carl Lentz saw an opportunity in Justin Bieber and took it. When people have the aura of celebrity reflected on them, when you're suddenly very attractive to lots of women.
Yeah, he looks like a hunk. There's photos of him walking around with Justin Bieber where Justin Bieber looks bad.
To me, that is inherently duplicitous or hypocritical, whether it's the desire to be close to fame or other very much earthly desires.
There's a pretty famous clip from Joe Rogan's podcast where he sees the photo of Lentz shirtless with Justin Bieber. And he's like, you guys only wear their shorts that low when they want women to think about their dicks.
There's the preacher. Look at whoa. What's going on with his fucking shorts? No. Any guy who's showing dick root, you're doing that because you're trying to get laid. Jesus does not want you dressing like that.
The motivation seems to have been to use celebrity, use glamour to amass a following, to amass power, to amass fame. Someone like Carl Lentz, who has these goals in mind and saw an opportunity to bring Bieber on board. And this may be a jump that's unfair to Carl Lentz, but it's absolutely the Scientology strategy. If you want to raise your profile and get eyes on you, you get a celebrity, and that's sort of 101 stuff.
I mean, this guy is seemingly friends with all of these people. And so it's impressive that he was able to build a network like that. And it's an influential network. It's like this person was able to somehow influence his way into some of the most powerful circles ever as a guy that represents the gospel, teaches the gospel. But then at the same time, for a lot of people, it looks like It was just a tool to build his own personal network.
My name is Dale Smith, and I did security for Hillsong. I grew up Southern Baptist. I've been to several churches, so that's what I expected. I do recall the very first day I look at my partner and I'm like, are we sure this is a church? Your venue in New York has thousands, not hundreds, like thousands, weekly. You're with rock stars, you're with athletes, and you have VIPs coming in who get special treatment.
Stars and athletes and stuff like that, and you did see, and there was sort of like a tiered system when you were there, like, you know, they sat like in the front. It was sort of like being in a, you know, Jewish synagogue. It's like if you paid, you sat in the front, and if you didn't pay as much, you sat in the back.
The reserve seating just got progressively more and more and just more intense.
When I first started serving, I accidentally sat a visitor that was coming in to participate in church in the VIP section. And one of the folks that was a leader pulled me off to the corner and scolded me for it and told me that we don't put normal people in the VIP section. I would always wonder, where would Jesus sit if he was here? Would he be allowed in the green room in the VIP seats? You know, it's just, what are we doing here?
Thank you guys for waiting. We didn't expect to be at capacity already.
That is how Christianity is then. We're all looking to figure out what caste we're in. It's like if you have this idea of VIP, these Christians need to have special treatment. It's tiered. I mean, it's classes.
They have banners that say welcome home and you belong, come as you are. But there's terms and conditions to my welcome.
It doesn't feel like a church. It feels like a business or a concert. In particular, when Pastor Carl came down. So on a day when Pastor Carl would come down from New York and preach at the service, come in usually a limo, excitement everywhere, much like the presidents coming to town.
Good to be here.
All the volunteers were on high alert, high alert. Typically, his advanced man security would come. We'd walk him around the venue, give him lay of the land. Once he hit that stage, pure rock star.
I pray that in your life you are not missing a move of God. He will bless your life. He will magnify your voice, and he will give you ground you have not asked.
The second he was off, he's right into the car and off to the next venue. You know, as security, you don't draw judgments. I'm there to protect the venue and everybody. But I am not familiar with that type of relationship between a preacher and the congregation. Any church I've been involved with, I can walk in my pastor's office. Their door is certainly open, especially after a sermon. And that just didn't happen when Pastor Carl was there.
Is Carl the next Brian Houston, the next Joel Osteen?
Could well be. Carl obviously, you know, he's a magnetic, attractive guy. I mean, his tattoos are a problem, but...
You don't like the tattoos?
They're okay, they're okay.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Poppy, for bringing that up.
Yeah.
It was like, there was separation. It was like, you didn't think of Hillsong Church and Brian Houston anymore. You thought of Hillsong Church and Carl Lentz. The Hillsong brand is what got him here, but then Carl became bigger than what Hillsong was. Carl made himself untouchable.
There have been pastors that have begun to outshine the boss, and I think that's what happened in the case with Carl Lentz.
It was always like, be careful, man, because the only thing that everyone likes more than a rising star is a falling star, right? Eventually, the stuff is going to catch up with you.
Carl Lentz, I mean, think about it. He's one of the top revenue streams in the organization.
If you got any reason to be grateful, why don't you give Jesus a shout of praise and just stir it up a little bit tonight?
His franchise location is pulling down probably more than any other franchise location in the world. Carl Lentz is the superstar. This is the kingdom that Carl Lentz wants to be a part of.
Wherever Jesus went, there were absolute throngs of people trying to get to him.
He craved that sort of notoriety, that sort of celebrity.
Every university felt it. Every club felt it. Every prison felt it. Every place where people were running.
I think that narcissism and control does not have a place in a pastor position. They should probably be a comedian, maybe even a public speaker, but the pastor is supposed to serve. A pastor is supposed to protect. A pastor is supposed to love. A pastor is not seeking his own attention and his own titles and you name it.
You think Carl's a narcissist?
Judging from the godlike behavior that I witnessed, 100%. I do.
Carl was definitely a narcissist. I think you have to be a narcissist to succeed with any megachurch.
The Lord is my shepherd, and I lack nothing.
He is so full of himself with arrogance, and that's a big problem, you know, because he's the founder of this very dangerous charismatic movement that young people are really attracted to.
The worse culture gets, the better it is for us, because people they're not buying what culture's selling like they used to. People are looking for real answers.
They bring you in with culture. And so getting it in with music and our age group, our clothes, I mean, everyone started dressing the exact same way as Carl Lentz.
I mean, would you say that you guys were idolizing might be a strong word?
It is a very great word. Idolizing is a perfect word because Carl Lentz became a cult leader to a bunch of people like me that ended up trying to follow into this thing of, I want to be big and powerful and cool and have people want to be on fire for something and lead people.
Carl became a cult leader in your eyes.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
A cult is when I tell you what to think, and if you think any different, you're gone. That's a cult. We preach the opposite. Actually, you should go home and question what I preach. You should look it up in your own Bible.
Is creating a brand or an idol out of a pastor or preacher problematic? I think so. And if the church's whole thing is based on that one guy or girl, one really impressive, attractive, entertaining, talented person that is doing great, but is one misstep away from literally imploding the entire thing, your ministry is now eroded. It's built on sand in a lot of ways.
Hillsong has tremendous leaders in so many different churches. Of course, that's led to a lot of celebrity, but at the core of it, at the heart of it, is a church that I believe is genuinely a work of God. It helps people to believe that there's a God who loves them and cares for them and has a plan for their lives. But fame, popularity, we've always had to deal with that. As pastors become well known, you know, the old cliche is you have to watch out for the girls, the gold, and the glory.
Lord, keep my heart pure, keep my thoughts pure. Any areas in my life that stuff has creeped in, Lord, please help me keep these hands clean.
You can run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later, God will cut you down. Sooner or later, God will cut you down.
Carl have a lot of blood on his hands, you know, let's put it that way, that he needs to clean.